All right, we are on. Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode of Weekly Dose with Dr. Uday. I have a special guest, and I'm very excited. So, Dr. Stageberg is here with us. She took a time out of her busy schedule to be with us. We're going to be talking all about self confidence from the perspective of a psychiatrist, which is Dr. Stageberg's formal training. So, I'll start with introductions and then we're going to get started. So, for those that don't know me, my name is Dr. Uday. I'm a board certified family medicine physician. I am based in Martinsburg, West Virginia. I co-own a primary care practice, namely Apple Valley Family Medicine, and my goal is to have my patients feeling and looking good. So, Dr. Stageberg, if you could let us know a little bit about yourself, I'm super excited and can't wait to dive in.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited too. This is just such an important topic for people to cover. So as you mentioned, my name is Dr. Elaine Stageberg. I'm a psychiatrist by training. I had the good fortune of training at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, and just so delighted to have the opportunity to train at such an institution and to really focus not only on pharmacology and prescribing, but really heavy focus on therapy and mindset and the things that we can do in our own selves to help with our self-confidence and the way we feel and augment the things that we're doing with our primary care physicians or psychiatrists. I'm married. I've been married for about 12 years. I have 4 young children. I have a 1-year-old, a 3-year-old, a 6-year-old, and an 8-year-old. People always ask my hobbies, and I'm like, well, the children are my hobbies.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Love it. Wow. So you're definitely busy. So I have 3 of my own and I definitely understand. So let's actually start with the first question. So from your perspective, what would you define self-confidence as?
Yeah, excellent question. I really love the word self-agency. Self-agency. So when I think of self-confidence, I think of, things like feeling good, feeling centered in oneself, feeling sure of oneself. All of those things probably resonate with the listener. I do think, unfortunately, that self-confidence has, maybe sort of kind of gotten a bad rap over the last many years of like, oh, it's like rah rah or woo woo, or you kind of like pep yourself up for a day and then, or maybe even for just a few hours and then kind of go back to not feeling so well. Self-agency, maybe that's a topic that maybe fewer folks have heard. That's the idea that as humans we are in control of ourselves, and that's really what separates us from all other animals on earth, is that we have the ability to see the future, to have a plan of this is what I would like to accomplish in the future, and then to work toward that plan. And then we also have the ability to tell ourselves stories about what we're experiencing in life. And we'll get into that, as we go on in the questions here. But that's the idea of self-agency, that what we see in our world is really through the lens that we see it, and we can choose to have a very empowered sense of self-agency, a very empowered sense of self, and in doing so can feel so much better, can feel so much more in control of our emotions, can enjoy the joys more, but also weather the storms better, right? That we know that life is good and life is bad, and we want to enjoy ourselves to the fullest when life is giving us the good stuff. And we want to handle the harder stuff as best we can and learn from it and bring it into our stories in a very empowered sense. And all of that is the concept of self-agency.
That is very interesting. That's really, really a good way to put it. Just have me thinking, my wheels turning. So the other question I have for you is, so in your opinion, what contributes to low self-esteem, like low self-confidence? What would you say?
Yeah. I think the thing that I see, particularly in modern society in, 2023, almost about to be 2024, is unfortunately we spend so much of our time second guessing ourselves, right? We spend so much of our time comparing ourselves to what we see on social media, what we see on advertisements on, television, or even audio only advertisements that we might hear on Spotify or something like that. Like we're fed so many messages of kind of this hybrid of everyone else is perfect and this hybrid of you need something in order to be fulfilled. You need this product or this experience or this thing. And so our minds are just sort of left with this constant question of, am I enough? And do I belong? Am I enough and do I belong? And to me, that's the essence of sort of low self-esteem or low self-confidence, is getting wrapped up into that narrative instead of having a very empowered sense of self, an empowered sense of self-agency, an empowered sense of saying, everything in the world is the story that I tell myself. So a really simple, the example is so simple that I find people kind of find it to be humorous is, let's say you and I are sitting in the same room and it's 68 degrees on the thermostat, and we walk up to the thermostat and we agree together, yes, I see the thermostat, you see the thermostat. We both agree that the thermostat says 68 degrees. We don't have any worry that like the thermostat is broken or that you're seeing a different number. We definitely agree. For you, that might be a wonderful temperature. You're nice and cool. You feel refreshed. You feel great. For me, that might be ice cold. I'm shivering. I can't concentrate, whatever the things are. That's an example of how the story that we tell ourselves is reality. The reality that you have is that this room is a perfect temperature and I feel great and I'm able to get, my work done. And my reality is I can't concentrate. I'm shivering. I need to get a space heater. This is miserable, all of the things. And that example is so simple that we can all sort of agree, yeah, that I've been in a situation like that, maybe with my partner, one of us wants the room cool and one of us wants the room a little warmer.
Right.
And that extends to everything. So if we see something in, say, social media or in family dynamics or what have you, maybe it's family dynamics. Maybe our mother-in-law or our sister-in-law or someone says something to us that, we could interpret it as, well, that's rude, or she's rude, or how dare she say that, or she doesn't understand me, or I wish the family was different, right? Or we could interpret it from a very empowering lens of, I wonder if I shared with her these feelings, if we would understand each other better. Or, usually she's in, we have a really great relationship and that really hurt. I'm going to circle back in a couple of days to see maybe she's having a really bad day. Or, even something, maybe it is a relationship where there has been some trauma or some breakdown in communication. Wow, that really did hurt, but I know that's not about me, right? So this isn't about positive or about toxic positivity or everything sunshine and rainbows. There can still be boundaries. There can still be self-care, but we can tell ourselves very empowering stories. And then it's easy to see how that then leads to a higher sense of self-confidence, of self-esteem, of self-agency, a story of, wow, that thing that this person said to me, that was really hurtful, but I know that that's about them. That's about things that happened in their childhood or are going on in their own lives. This isn't a reflection on who I am as a person. I can choose to set a boundary. I can choose to still love them, but not allow this hurt to continue. That's very empowered versus, this person said something that hurt my feelings. I'm no good, or I'm not worthy, or I don't belong. Everything that we experience as humans, the thing that separates us from all other animals is that we get to decide how we interpret information. We get to choose to tell ourselves empowering stories, and we get to see the vision of the future that we want to create and then move toward that with intention.
That is very powerful. So it's not the external stimuli, it's your response to it.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Dr. Viktor Frankl, one of the world's best ever psychiatrists. He was an Austrian psychiatrist who unfortunately, spent time in a concentration camp during World War II. And he wrote the book, Man's Search for Meaning. And exactly the concept that you just summarized there in that one sentence, that in between the stimulus and the response, there's a space, and we get to decide what happens in that space. And he wrote that from a place of being imprisoned and, watching his friends die and wondering if he too would die. And he said, but I got to choose the mood that I would be in that day. I got to choose how I would interpret the events. I would find pleasure in, a cool breeze or a little piece of music or a nice conversation with someone in the midst of all of this suffering. The book Man's Search for Meaning, I highly recommend it for everyone to read through. Really gives you a deep sense of that human self-agency that we all have inside of us.
So I guess the other thing, and I'm pretty sure a lot of listeners would want to hear this, is so if there's somebody out there listening to this that is struggling with self-confidence, self-esteem, what have you, any actionable tips that you can give them? And I feel like it's been ringing through in what you're saying. So, but just formally, actionable tips you would give them to boost their self-confidence.
Yeah, absolutely. The first thing I must say as a psychiatrist is that if at any point in the journey, things have gotten heavy enough for you that you have suicidal ideation, get help, right? There's always an alternate path. There's always an alternate solution to something like suicide, which is a permanent solution to the temporary pain that someone is experiencing. So whether that's your psychiatrist, primary care, a loved one, a religious leader, whomever that is, there are plenty of resources out there. Perhaps in the show notes, you could put the suicide prevention hotline that's available 24/7 in our country. If you feel like it's more of kind of a day-to-day struggle and you're thinking, what are some tips that I want to pull out of my tool bag to help me with this? The first thing I would say is remembering, this sounds a little silly, but remembering that our brains are connected to our bodies. And particularly in Western medicine, we've kind of split the two, right? We've kind of split physical health and mental health. And there's some reason for that mental health has, some different attributes to it, and there, might need some therapy and some other things. But remembering that our brains are connected to our bodies and thinking about what can you do in your body to help yourself feel really good. A very simple thing that I love is what I call power postures, Wonder Woman, Superman, whatever you want to call. Standing up, putting your hands on your hips, elongating your spine, pulling your neck up, standing there for about 2 minutes. Almost everyone can do that. Even if you have had, different injuries or you're elderly or what have you, almost everyone can just stand in that very empowered pose for about 2 minutes. And studies show that when we elongate our spinal cords, we produce more oxytocin, which is the connection hormone. We produce more serotonin, which is our feel-good hormone. We produce more dopamine, which is our positive reward hormone. And we produce less cortisol, which is our stress hormone. So we're sending these signals to our body that we're calm, that we're in charge, that we're centered, that we're present, and that we're not stressed, right? When we're stressed, remember, we're either hiding or running. We're not standing tall and proud and standing still. So it's a very simple thing. You can incorporate it into your routine every single morning. I do it as soon as I wake up every morning. I drink as much cold water as I can possibly take in. And then I do my power posture for just about 2 minutes. It feels so good. But you can also do it throughout the day, right? Many of us have jobs where we're sitting a lot of the day. If you know you're going into a tough meeting or you just had an argument with your spouse or your kid or whatever, just go and do your power posture. And remember that you are signaling from your brain to your body to produce the set of hormones that you want to have in your body. And then think about how can you look at whatever is happening from an empowered perspective? How can you rewrite the story? How can you rewrite your interpretation of whatever's happening? I find that if you lean into gratitude or what lesson can I learn, you can spin around almost any negative event. A friend, you get excluded from a party or something like that. You can spin it around to like that's a hurtful thing, right? For human beings.
Yeah.
You can spin it around to I'm so grateful for these other friends. I'm so grateful for the friendship I do have with that person. I bet there's a bigger reason why I wasn't invited to this particular thing. I'm so grateful for these other activities I can be doing with this time, right? One is a position of feeling less than, feeling unwanted. Those are common feelings that we as humans can circle ourselves back into. And the other is an empowering story focused on gratitude. And again, I'm just trying to give like little common examples here. But those two things are things that I would come up with for just sort of your day-to-day how can you get yourself feeling better is do your power postures and focus on how you can tell yourself an empowered story.
Those are very simple and very powerful. So thank
Mm-hmm.
you so much for that, because I'm pretty sure there are people listening
and
that would
and
appreciate
the thing that I'll throw out there is they're
Mhm.
almost so simple that
Yeah.
no doubt there's some listeners that are thinking like, well, that's too simple. That won't help me. And to you, I'll say, I get it. They do sound so simple that you're like, that's too simple, right? They work. They work. They work they work with your kids. They work with yourself at work. They work with yourself in tough situations, enjoyable situations. Sometimes the beauty in our mindsets is going back to things that work that are just so simple.
The basics, simple to do, simple not to do, right? So,
Mhm.
but
Absolutely.
it's interesting you mentioned kids, because that's exactly what I was thinking about. I'm like going to be all over that with my kiddos. So thank you so much for that. So actually, I was going to flip on the other side and just inquire about things that you do outside of medicine, other interests that you have, if you wanted to share
Yeah.
briefly about that. Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. So in addition to those 4 crazy kiddos that take up a lot of my time,
Yeah.
I actually became a real estate investor, many, many, many moons ago, well before, even starting medical school, and continued to grow my portfolio. And so today I run a large real estate investment company called Black Swan Real Estate, where I work with passive investors who invest money in our company. We go out and we buy single family homes and apartment buildings. We do large renovations. We manage those properties, take good care of them, take good care of the people that are living in them, and then deliver returns to our passive investors. The name of the company is Black Swan Real Estate.
Awesome. And then a question I wanted to ask is, with what you've done with real estate, um, how, like, if you had somebody else looking into it, how has that impacted you so far with how far you've gone with it?
Yeah, excellent question. So, that's such a multifactorial question. There's lots to
Mhm.
unpack there.
Yes.
But the thing that I would say that going back to telling ourselves empowering stories, right, is no matter where you are in the spectrum of your finances, what can you do that's empowering? So I was legally emancipated when I was 16. I lived in government housing. I finished high school myself. I remember my very first check from McDonald's that passed $200, right? So I've been in that end of the spectrum, and now I'm on the spectrum where I'm managing literally hundreds of millions of dollars of real estate. And the thing that I would say is think about what you can do with your finances from an empowered place. And what can you do thinking of the future, right? What can you say? This is what I want life to look like 3 months from now, 1 year from now, 10 years from now, my retirement, all of the things. And then model your daily behavior after the future outcomes that you want, recognizing that there might be some short-term sacrifices. Maybe it's foregoing some purchases that you wanted, or changing jobs, or asking for a promotion, or picking up a side gig, whatever those things are. But it gets you toward the future that you want. And before you know it, that future will be here, because the time is going to pass regardless. So if you can think about what you can set up in your financial world to empower yourself as much as possible, start by getting out of consumer debt, paying down credit cards, car loans, those sorts of things, saving an emergency fund. At first, maybe that's just, one paycheck's worth, and then you build that up to 3 or 6 or 12 months worth, working with a trusted financial advisor to ask, based on my age and my income and my risk tolerance and all of those things, what should my investments look like?
Right.
I have found that real estate investments tend to give outsized performance as compared to more traditional investments like stocks or bonds. And so I made the decision early on in my life to invest very heavily in real estate. And I'm reaping the financial benefits that come of that. Again, there's a lot of risk benefit analysis there, but all of it comes back to the idea that if as humans, we're kind of taught to kind of put our heads in the sands or not look at things that maybe seem complex or where there's like some decisions to be made. Maybe just set that energy aside and say, money is such a critical part of life. How can I approach it from a very empowered perspective? Have the information that I need, learn more, right? Hop on Google, listen to podcasts, whatever it is, work with your advisors, learn more, come up with an empowered plan, and then take the steps to get there. And for me, real estate was a big part of that.
That is awesome. So the other question I ask all my guests that come on is, with all the experiences that you've had, all the life you've lived so far, if you got a chance to meet your 20-year-old self, what would you say to her? That's a loaded question, isn't it?
Yeah, that is such a good question. So I'm 37 years old. I'm about 20 years away from that. And rather than one specific advice, I would tell my 20-year-old self a story. So, I just shared I was emancipated at 16, all sorts of family trauma, physical abuse, sexual abuse. Unfortunately, my parents had very serious substance use issues. My father eventually passed away of a drug overdose. I have a brother who's just a few years older than me. And through all of this, we were not close. And I look back with just such mourning of that, of, wow, maybe we could have handled some of those storms together. But for whatever reason, we just hated each other. We just did not get along.
Gotcha.
And just this past Thanksgiving, after many, many, many years of space and then repair and then conscious effort on the relationship, he and his wife drove halfway across the country to spend Thanksgiving with myself, my husband, and our children, stayed with us for 4 days. It was just a beautiful experience, and we all got along, and we were able to talk about our childhood and remember the hard times, but also remember some of the good times, and talk about, what we would do differently, right? It's always easy as adults to go back and think, oh yeah, when we were 15, maybe we should have done this. But it was just such a nice experience. And I remember, just kind of looking out on Thanksgiving Day and thinking to myself, a younger version of me would not have believed that this was possible. But life is so long. And if you just commit to a vision, you can repair relationships. You can build new relationships. You can find a new way. You can set new traditions in your own life, in your family's life, in your community, all of the things. Life is so long that there is time to do those things. And then simultaneously, I'm 37, my brother's 40, the good Lord willing, we live another 40, 50 years. We have a whole lifespan of this new positive relationship ahead of us because we put in the effort over the last 10 years to repair it, that led to this really beautiful Thanksgiving that now can lead to a whole different life, that when we're 80, 90 years old, passing away, we can look back and say, yeah, those really early years, they were tough, but we figured it out. That this Thanksgiving is definitely it is becoming a pivotal moment in my entire adult life as I'm reconnecting with my brother.
That is beautiful. That is so beautiful. You guys thought it was going to be good, but we didn't realize it was going to be this good. So I'm so happy for you. But thank you so much. So the other question I always ask is, people that want to connect with you, want to look you up, all that good stuff, where can they find you?
Absolutely. So our website is meetblackswan.com. Meetblackswan.com tells you a little bit about myself, our company, our portfolio, how to invest with us, how to learn about real estate investing, sign up for our newsletter. All of the things are right there at meetblackswan.com.
Yay. Thank you so much. This was so good. So you guys definitely look her up. Thank you. So on the flip side, if you're looking for a great family medicine physician, we are accepting new patients at Apple Valley Family Medicine. Our website is www.applevalleyfamilymed.com. Our number here is 304-350-1087. You guys have an amazing week. Thank you so much. This was amazing. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.